stand on the brink of battle. Let our hearts be ablaze for freedom. Remember me.
Frank Randall wrote it in his book. Jaime Fraser dies at the Battle of King's Mountain. That's not a rumor. That's not a fan theory. That is recorded history, written by a man who had access to the future. And after 12 years and 101 episodes, we are finally here. The battle has arrived, the clock has run out, and the only thing standing between Jaime Fraser and death is a woman who can bend the rules of time itself. So the real question is, will she be enough? Let's talk about how we actually got here, because everything that happens in episode 10 has been building for a very long time. Back in episode 8, Jaime and Claire cracked the code on Frank's book. For most of season 8, they couldn't understand why Frank, a man who had every reason to resent Jaime Fraser, would dedicate an entire historical account to documenting his life and death. The answer hit them like a freight train. Frank's book is dedicated to "My Dearest Deadeye," and Roger pointed out that Frank used to call Brianna Deadeye because of her sharpshooting skills. Frank didn't write that book out of spite. He wrote it as a message, a roadmap for Brianna, knowing she would one day live in the 18th century and need to know everything about the world she was walking into. More than that, he wanted Jaime to read it. He wanted Jaime to see his own death coming and fight like hell to change it so that he would survive and be there to protect Brianna. That one revelation reframed everything. The man Claire spent years thinking of as a ghost from her past, a bitter reminder of a life she left behind, had actually been quietly watching out for Jaime from beyond the grave. And that changes the emotional weight of the finale completely. This isn't just about whether Jaime lives or dies. It's about whether Frank's final act of love for his daughter actually worked. Now, going into episode 10, the situation is as real as it gets. At the end of episode 9, Benjamin Cleveland arrived at Fraser's Ridge and made it official. It's time to march. The final moments of episode 9 see Benjamin Cleveland arrive at Fraser's Ridge and announce that it is time to head into battle. Jaime and Claire have prepared for this in every way they can, but the reality is that they see no real signs that the fate Frank wrote about in his book won't come to pass. Jaime knows what Frank said. Claire knows what Frank said. And yet, they are walking straight toward it because Jaime has no choice. His deal with Cleveland, made to protect Fraser's Ridge from being taken over by Captain Cunningham, obligates him to show up and fight. He traded his safety for his home, and now he has to pay that price. What makes this so gut-wrenching is that episode 9 also slammed the door on any easy way out. Claire had hoped that Richardson, a man she discovered was a time traveler himself, might prove that history could be meaningfully changed. But John killed Richardson the moment he left the room, officially solidifying history as Claire knows it. Richardson's death feels like an omen that Claire's efforts and Jaime's story won't have a happy outcome. Every thread that could have offered a loophole got cut. The universe seems to be pulling Jaime toward King's Mountain like a current he can't swim against. So the question isn't whether the battle will happen. The battle is happening. The only question left is what happens on that battlefield, and whether Claire Fraser has something inside her that history never accounted for. But here's what nobody is talking about. There's one detail hidden in plain sight all season that may change absolutely everything, and most fans have completely missed it. Let's talk about Claire's blue light, because I think this is the key to everything that happens in episode 10, and the show has been setting it up far more carefully than most people realize. Back in episode 3, Abby's Fraser, Claire did something that stopped the entire fandom cold. She was holding a newborn baby that wasn't breathing, and in a moment of overwhelming grief, with the memory of her own lost daughter Faith crashing over her, a blue light radiated from her hands, and that baby came back. Now, a lot of people watched that scene and thought it was a one-off emotional moment. It wasn't. The blue light scene feels less like a standalone twist and more like future setup. This may not be about undoing Faith. It may be about preparing Claire for Jaime, and that framing matters enormously going into the finale, Because here's what the show has made very clear about this power. It is not something Claire can switch on whenever she wants. The gift appears to be rare, unstable, and tied to intense emotional conditions. Claire is not in command of it. She is overwhelmed by it. She didn't save that baby by thinking about saving the baby. She saved it by drowning in grief, by feeling completely helpless, by loving someone so much that her body did something her mind couldn't control. That is an incredibly specific set of conditions. And if you think about what it would feel like to watch Jamie Fraser die in your arms on a battlefield after 12 years and 2 lifetimes together, after traveling through time twice just to be by his side, those conditions would be met completely. Season 8 has introduced Claire's healing powers, where she brought a baby that wasn't breathing back to life, in the same vein as Master Raymond. If there's a will, there's a way when it comes to the Frasers. But here is what nobody is saying out loud. Claire becoming a surgeon in the 20th century was never just a character detail. Claire mused that maybe Frank's withholding the knowledge that Jamie survived Culloden was a good thing, because it meant she stayed in the 20th century and became a surgeon, which means she might be able to save him if he falls at King's Mountain. So Claire has 2 things working in her favor going into that battlefield: her surgical training as a trauma doctor, and a mystical healing ability she can't fully explain or control. The show has quietly handed her every possible tool she could need to save Jamie's life. Whether she gets the chance to use them is another story entirely. Because here is where it gets complicated. Brianna spent episode 8 engineering Hall rifles, modified versions of Major Patrick Ferguson's specialized weapons, specifically because Frank's book mentioned those guns being used at King's Mountain. She was building better weapons to give the Patriots an edge. And Roger, who has just been accepted by the Presbytery of Savannah and is about to be ordained as a minister, is standing on the sidelines of this battle with something to lose too. The whole Fraser family has been quietly preparing for this moment all season long, but preparation and fate are 2 very different things. And if the history Frank recorded is as ironclad as episode 9 made it seem, then no amount of surgical skill, blue light, or Hall rifles can stop what's coming. So ask yourself this: if Claire's power only activates at the moment of deepest sorrow, does that mean Jamie has to actually die first before she can bring him back? So let's bring it all together, because episode 10 isn't just wrapping up a battle, it's wrapping up a story that started with a ghost. Think about that for a second. The very first episode of Outlander, way back in season 1, opened with Frank spotting a mysterious figure outside their inn window in Inverness in 1945. A tall Scottish man, in period clothing, standing in the rain, staring up at Claire. Diana Gabaldon herself confirmed that it is Jamie's ghost in that scene, settling long-standing speculation. So we have known since literally episode 1 that Jamie Fraser becomes a ghost. The show didn't hide that. It opened with it. And now, 101 episodes later, we are finally going to find out how. The fan theory that has circulated for years is rooted in something Jamie said before the Battle of Culloden, when he was just 25 years old. Jamie swore that he would find Claire again, even if he had to endure 200 years of purgatory. Fans have connected that vow directly to his ghost appearing in 1945, exactly 200 years after he would have died, watching over Claire the night before she walked through the standing stones. The idea is that Jamie kept his promise in the most literal sense possible. He waited, he roamed, he watched, and he found her. That is one of the most romantic and heartbreaking things this show has ever put on the table, and episode 10 is the only episode left that can pay it off properly. But here's where Fanny comes in, and I don't think enough people are paying attention to her going into this finale. In episode 8, Fanny picked up a gemstone at Jane's cairn, and it cracked in her hand and burned her skin, and she heard the buzzing sound. The same sound that every time traveler in this show hears near the standing stones. Anyone who has watched Outlander for this long knows what that buzzing means. Fanny has the time travel gene, and it seems extremely likely that she is going to use it. And think about who she would go looking for. Not her parents, not a safer time. She would go looking for Jane. That's the only place her heart would take her. The show has spent all season establishing that Fanny's grief over Jane is the deepest wound she carries. And in Outlander, we know by now that the heart doesn't just guide you emotionally. It literally guides you through time. The producers shot multiple endings for the series finale, and even Caitriona Balfe and Sam Heughan themselves don't know how it ends. Let that sink in. The two people who have carried this show for 12 years walked off that set without knowing whether Jamie lives or dies. That kind of secrecy doesn't happen unless the ending is something truly unexpected. And maybe that's the point. Maybe this finale isn't going to give us the clean, comfortable ending we've been bracing for. Maybe Jamie does die on that battlefield. Maybe Claire does hold him while the blue light either comes or it doesn't. Maybe Fanny disappears through time in the same episode that Jamie becomes a ghost. And maybe, just maybe, the world that was all around them was never just Fraser's Ridge. It was every time, every place, every version of themselves they fought so hard to get back to each other across. So before you sit down to watch the finale, ask yourself one thing. Are you really ready to say goodbye?